aquí. Estamos aquí para hablar del poder de la mujer. What are we going to do? ¿Hablar de qué? El poder de la mujer. ¿Qué? El poder de la mujer. Feel the power in this room. That's who Latinas are. So they asked me today to talk about my story. And you know, that's hard for us sometimes, right? To talk about ourselves. We've been taught to be humble and not to toot our own horns. But I want to say this. I want to say that we should begin with a moment of gratitude, of gracias, to all the people that prepared us, the people that prepared us to be in this room today, to be the powerful women that we are. And so I give thanks for my parents and my grandparents, mis abuelos, para nuestros antepasados, for our teachers, for those comadres that have helped us along the way. We want to say thank you to our tios and tias, to our coaches, because we know that we never accomplished anything alone. And it is because they have prepared us that we can be the powerful women that we are today. So just gracias. And you know, gracias is a powerful leadership tool, because to be grateful is to have enough. To be grateful, your cup runneth over. To be grateful, you have that power to give to others. And so I want to start with recognizing two powerful Latinas who came before us and who taught me. The great Lina Archuleta, who has the school named after her, right? First Latina principal in the public schools, opening the door for our children to be able to see one of them. And the great Dr. Martha Uroste. Dr. Uroste, another educator who brought Montessori to our children. And that's so important because Montessori is kinetic learning, and we're kinetic learners. And there they are with the Circle of Latina Leadership, giving of their skills to prepare the next generation, because Latinas are an intergenerational community, and we believe that we pass the torch from one generation to the next. So gracias for being here and for allowing me to share my story. So, I'm supposed to have power here. When I go like this, the next slide comes up. So, sharing our narratives is very important. You know, I got a chance for my new book to interview Christine Jimenez, who was one of the co-founders of United We Dream and the DACA students, who brought the first change in immigration in 20 years. Our students did that. And they did it by standing up and telling their stories at great risk because they were undocumented. And she said to me, Juana, telling our stories is so important because of the Latino dysphoria, where we come from so many countries, right? And we've all been, you know, 1 out of 5 people move every year. And so to build that sense of community, to understand who we are as a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multicultural people, we have to share our stories. The other thing about sharing our stories is it begins to make connections, because our stories are so similar. So that's a picture of me. Oh, wait a minute, I was going to have a timer on because ustedes saben que yo puedo hablar por días. Y solamente me dieron 30 minutos. So, okay, that's a picture de mi madre. Y 6 de sus, no, you have to go back. I didn't, that was not that. Yes. All right, so, mi madre y 6 de sus hijos. As we were about to get on a banana boat to cross el Golfo de Mexico, to come to the promised land, the land of opportunity. So many of us have that story. I was born, well, my family comes from the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua. Yeah, I have a little Mexican in there too, you know. And a tsunami wiped out the coast in the 40s. So my father, being very strategic, went to the monte. So I was actually born in the jungle. And so be careful, right? When you're born in the jungle, you're the real deal. And but he left with my 2 older sisters to do what so many of our families do, to go earn money to bring his familia to America. So my first memory is being on this banana boat, and we did not have a first-class ticket. We were in the hull of the banana boat, and there was a room that had bunk beds
estuvimos allí montados, all one on top of the other in these bunk beds. And my brother Cristobal came and said, Juana, ¿quieres un plátano? So he asked me if I wanted a banana. And we land in Tampa, Florida. Mi mamá had a 5th grade education. And she was a very humble woman. She went to the padrecito, right? To the church. And she said to him, yo puedo cocinar, limpiar, cuidar niños. And think of that humility. I can cook, I can clean, I can take care of children. But then she closed the deal. She said, I came here, yo vengo, para que mis hijos puedan tener una mejor vida. And that's what our antepasados have done. That's what our parents have done through their sacrifice, through their putting their lives on hold. We are the dreams deferred of those that came before us, who dreamed that one day one of their own would have a good job like you have, would live in a nice house, would get an education. And so my mother washed dishes for 10 years. And then she started a little daycare center in our home and became a little entrepreneur. And when I was growing up, I grew up in the 40s, before there was anything like Latinos, right? No, we didn't exist. We didn't exist till, get it, we didn't exist. When I filled out my first census in 1970, there was no Latinos there. And so I'm growing up at a time when there's no Latinos. I'm poor, I'm an immigrant. My mother had a 5th grade education. Everybody older than me spoke with an accent. And so I was embarrassed about who I was, right? In those days, you were embarrassed. People changed their names. They didn't speak Spanish. And yet, as I did my own work and I figured out who I am and where the poder de la mujer comes from, it comes from our families. Because my mother sacrificed everything. She left her home, she left her family, she left her culture, her language, and we know how our immigrants are treated today. And back then. And so when I did my work, and it's so important that we do this, especially if you've grown up, you know, as a minority in a colonized, we're colonized, right? And I always tell my South American friends, you gotta feel sorry for the Latinos in the US because we were colonized twice, once by the Spanish and once by the Anglo-Saxons, right? But this is good because now we're bicultural. I'll talk to you about that. That's part of our power. So yeah, but as I did my work, I realized I come from greatness. Come on, let's say it. We come from greatness. We come from people who sacrificed everything, who taught us the values of giving back, of service, of community, of familia, of hard work. And so we as Latinos have got to assume that power that we have that comes from those who came before us. Now you can move it. So because I was the youngest, I was able to get a college education. I entered the University of Florida in 1960. I never met another Latina. Never met another Latino. I was walking here today and I had a flashback of how hard it was to go to a big institution, you know, because we don't have big institutions, and how hard it was for me to figure out what to do. And my junior year, I saw my political science professor walking towards the administration building, and I ran up. I said, Dr. Panther, what are you doing? And he said, we're marching to integrate the University of Florida, because there were no blacks there either. But I knew from my background, I knew from my values that that was wrong, and I got in line. And I want to tell you, I'm still standing. I'm still standing. So mujeres, when I was in college, I got to see John Kennedy. Era un Dios, era un Dios. And you know, our community loved him because he's the one who said that we were his neighbors, the South Americans, and he started the Alliance for Progress, and Jacqueline spoke Spanish, you know. And so anyway, he started the Peace Corps, and he said, that's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And so I joined the Peace Corps. And the reason it was so important is because I got to go to a South American country at a time when Latinos were whitewashed, at a time when the only path to success was assimilation, at a time when we were told not to speak our language. And so I go to Chile, and the president of Chile was, and I want you to say Hispanic when I do this, the president of Chile was, the head of all the universities were, the person who owned Land Chile and all the corporations were, all the teachers, professors, the business people, everybody, and they had a great tradition. Gabriela Mistral had won the Nobel Prize. Pablo Neruda had won the Nobel Prize. And I knew right then it was not our culture that had kept us from being great in this country. And so I came back, a born-again Latina. And I made a commitment then that I would serve my community, that I would help our community understand who we were and what we did. And so your early life, I tell young people, is so important because it shapes the substance of your life. And so after I joined the Peace Corps, by the way, I married this gorgeous Irish guy. I don't call him my ex-husband, I call him my friend Theron. And he was from Wisconsin. So I don't know where that shot is. Can you go back one? I usually have a clicker. Isn't there a shot? Go back one slide, please. No, it's not there, so I'll just say the story. I don't know what happened to my slides. I'm usually more in charge. Okay, so I marry him and I go to Wisconsin. I think this story is in my Destino story. And I'm going to be the good Hispanic wife. I'm going to work while he goes to law school. And so I go to meet with this guy at the state of Wisconsin. Now, I have been in Chile, and I organized micro-enterprise. I had a woman's sewing group, a woman's knitting group, a woman's baking group, and they would make things and sell them. And, you know, it was economic development. And then their husbands came and said, help us start a welding group. So I thought I could do anything, right? So I go to meet with this guy, and I say, I want a job. And he says, I can see, you know, I have a portfolio. I have pictures of what I did in Chile. You know, I'm the first one in my family to be literate, to get a college degree. So I think I got it going on, right? So he says to me, I can see that you're really powerful and you have a lot to contribute, but we only hire people who have a master's in social work. And I took all of my papers and I put them on the table and I went, you don't understand. I was born to be a social worker. And he looks at me and he's totally frustrated. And he says to me, oh, if you can go down to the University of Wisconsin and get in the social work school, we'll give you a stipend to go to graduate school if you'll come back and work for us. It wasn't even my idea. If you put yourself in the path of service, if you have intention, if you know what you're here to do, things open up for you. That's the way it happens. The universe needs you. And so when I come to Colorado, I'm like 2% of Latinas who have a degree. And I was able to teach at Colorado State University. Pueblo! My daughter was born at St. Mary Corwin's. Everybody that was born in Pueblo was born in St. Mary Corwin's. So your mother and I have the bond. And I taught a course called If High School's Not Where It's At, Why Not? It was for high school students that were smart, Latinos, but they weren't making it. And so I helped them understand the system. But I was really involved, at that time it was the 60s, with the Vietnam War, right? The Black movement, the Chicano movement. And we started the first women's group in Pueblo back in 1968. So in those days, the universities used to have teach-ins, they called them. And, they would get up and tell the students about the Black movement and the Chicano movement and everything. So I called Daryl, who was in charge, and I said, Daryl, who's going to be speaking about women? He said, oh, come on, Juana. That's what men would say in those days, even to Latinas. We got the Chicano movement. We got the war. I said, that's really great. But you know what? There's going to be like 10 women in the back with signs saying that you wouldn't let us speak. And he said, what time do you want to speak, Juana? Do not wait for that door to open. You open the door. So that's the first time I spoke publicly in Colorado, right? The first time I ever spoke in Colorado. So the women's movement was very important. I also say that I lived down in Walsenburg for a year. It's the only year that God gave me some R&R. I've been working since. And those are the Wahatoya, the breasts of Mother Earth, right? A great tribute to women that our indigenous people remind us of. But I want you to know that at that time, because I really believe we all have to carry our spiritual tradition because our families, our communities, our culture is based on spirituality and the belief that God is good. And so I heard about this thing called a bodhisattva vow. And what it is it comes out of the Eastern tradition, is that you go up and you make a vow to serve humanity. And the minute I heard it, I ran up on top of that mountain. I said, take me. Think about it, that intention. Take me, go. Go. All right, there it is. When I came to Denver, this is 1977, we started Mi Casa. I want you to understand that you stand on the shoulders of greatness, of people who have worked for decades to bring Latinas to where they are today. And so Mi Casa, and I like to put pictures up when I'm young, especially young people can't relate to una vieja. Ellos dicen, ¿y qué va a decir ella? I said, no, I was young once. And that's the first house in Mi Casa. I want you to know that I signed the papers for that house in 1980, the first piece of property bought by Latino women in this state. And now, of course, Mi Casa is the biggest Hispanic serving organization in the state. You know why? Because when Latino women do it, they do it right. Right? They do it right, and they work together to make it happen. I have done nothing in my life on my own. And so Mi Casa was based on a servant leader model. It's the most powerful form of leadership, and it is the leadership that has brought us here. And it's based on the needs of people. It's not about you. Leadership is not about you. It's about the people you serve. And so we did a survey. We went around to find out what Latinas needed, and we built the organization around that. You know you're a servant leader if the people that you serve become leaders. If they feel empowered. If they become autonomous, right? And if they begin to serve. So it was a really important thing. And again, there was some backlash. Why were Latina women standing up and saying? By the way, our logo for Mi Casa at that time was a house with the woman symbol, because Latino feminism is raising up the family, the community, and the nation. It's not about us. It's about raising everyone up, as we move up. Why don't we all do this? And there I am. That's me at Wisconsin. I already told you that story. This is my high school, by the way. I got an opportunity to be educated by the good nuns. Women who gave their lives to educate us. And so my mother, in her wisdom, and this is about opportunity knocking. You should always be looking for those moments in your life where the door was opened. When a coach helped you fill out your application, right? When you got a scholarship, when a professor took interest in you and it helped you guide you about what you were going to do with your life. So anyway, my mother drags me across town to meet this Mother Superior. And she says to the Mother Superior, you got to remember, my mother was a great strategic leader. Ay, yo vengo aquí para mi hija, te quiere educación, el otro. And pretty soon the Mother Superior is like, okay, what do you want? And So she said, I want my daughter to go to this school, the Academy Holy Names. And the Mother Superior took one look at me and she said, I'll give her a half a scholarship. She knew that it was my mother's idea, not mine, right? So then my mother gets me a job with her because my mother worked 6 days a week. On Sundays, she would get up at 5 in the morning and go watch all the children until the 12:15 Mass. And guess who was her assistant? My whole high school. And I made $30 a month, and I gave it to the Mother Superior so I could become educated. Tell your children that story. I tell it to my daughters all the time. So I became educated, and when I went back to my 20th year high school reunion, I realized I had gone to a prep school, and the reason I went to college is because all those girls were going to college. It wasn't my parents' idea. They thought a high school degree was a good education. It was because that door of opportunity opened for me. So you know about mi casa, you know about me becoming a badger at the University of Wisconsin, right? Got that. And then the National Hispano Leadership Institute. So I'm sitting at mi casa, I've been there 10 years, and I know that I could be there the rest of my life. And women would still need EDs. Women would still need job trainings. Latina would still need to learn English well. High school Latinas would still need services so they could finish high school, right? And so I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, well, what's the solution here? What's the solution here? And I knew it was leadership. What you're doing today, this is the solution. For us to become leaders of this century, for us to bring our incredible values and history into the mainstream. So I'm sitting there going like, it's got to be leadership, Juana. And I get a call from the Adolf Coors Company. And they say, Juana, we're getting some pressure nationally because we don't have any programs for women. Would you be interested in helping to start a national Latino leadership program? It really happened that way. And it's because, you know, in Denver, Mi Casa was the only real organization for women, and Coors is down the street, right? So that's how the National Hispano Leadership Institute got started, and it continued for almost 40 years, training 800 Latinas for national leadership, people that we can be proud of, like Debbie Ortega. So next slide. So here are some of the mujeres, right? And what I want you to know is that we've got some Circle of Latina Leadership women in here as well, correct? So after I was with the Hispana Institute, I wanted to make a contribution to Denver. So for 9 years, we ran this Circle program. And I got to tell you, they're running most of the organizations now. Everything from the Museo to Colores, the past director of Mi Casa. And so be careful because we are ready. We have 530 years that we've been preparing for this moment. El futuro es Latina. Okay, that's me in Nicaragua, and I want to explain to you por qué habla pocho. And let me check the time before they bring the okay, we got a little bit more time. So that's me in Nicaragua with my darling brother, John. And go ahead. I want you to think about this. I know you can't see it too good, so I'll tell you what it is. It's about Latino identity. So when I was young, we really had to adapt to the mainstream. You know, we had to learn to talk their language. We had to learn their culture. And we've all done that because we've been educated in their universities and their schools. But as we became a people, as we began to see our identity in the United States, we began to become bicultural and bilingual. We began to be able to be adept in both cultures. We began to be able to run mainstream organizations, to be principals, to be teachers, to start our own businesses. 80% of the businesses in the last decade were started by Latinos. And so we have become bilingual people. But we also have, especially with young people, who want to embrace their identity. And we have our immigrants who come in, who have been raised in cultures that are Latino. And so they're Latino and proud. And we're moving in that direction. So you can see that 30% of Latinos want to be more Latino. We want to embrace who we are. We want to learn our history. We want to learn about our leaders. We want to learn about our values. And 60% say they want to be bicultural, to walk in both worlds. And so I believe that Latinos are going to transform America. We're going to revitalize the American dream. We're going to bring our incredible values into the mainstream. And I'm going to tell you why that's going to happen. But I hablo pocha because I had to relearn Spanish when I went in the Peace Corps. Because when my grandmother came and I was 13, I couldn't talk with her. And I knew I had lost part of my soul. So if you don't know Spanish, you can learn it. Go, next slide. So I also have been on an incredible journey to learn about my gente, my people. That's me going back to Nicaragua when I was 21 with my Uncle Manuel. I trained for the Peace Corps in El Yunque in Puerto Rico. And if you've been to the Yunque, I spent 3 weeks in the Yunque at the YHCA camp, so I tell all the Puerto Ricans, I'm Puerto Rican now. I went to Chile in the Peace Corps. I have climbed every pyramid in Mexico. And by the way, gracias a Dios, because you can't climb Chichen Itza anymore. So I've traveled throughout Mexico, finding out about my Mexican heritage and the contributions of Mexico to the world. I spent 3 days, and by the way, this is hostels. This is not 5-star hotels. This is buses. So don't look at me and think I'm, living off the hog. So I spent 3 days walking through the Sacred Valley in Peru to come into Machu Picchu from the top, as did our ancestors, the Incas. I went to the Amazon. Unbelievable, the amount of water. The Amazon is the lungs of the earth. That's where all the greenery and the water is. And my last trip was to Colombia. I went to La Ciudad Perdida, the lost city. I walked for 3 days. When you get to the lost city, it's 1,200 steps up to the top. So stay in good health. But when you do this, you understand the power and the diversity and the beauty of this hemisphere, which connects us all. Next slide. Okay, so I want to talk to you about Bad Bunny. And, usually in my presentations, I sing and I dance, And so, Bad Bunny, tengo muchas novias. Bad Bunny, ¿quién es este cabrón? I say, well, I think he's white. But anyway, the reason he's so important is because he's marking our change in our culture. Yo solamente canta en español. And then he says, yo no voy, this is Time magazine. Bad Bunny becomes the #1 pop star in el mundo by standing up for who he is. Bad Bunny becomes the most downloaded Spotify person in 3 years in a row. Y él dice en español, no voy a hacer otra cosa para que a ti me gusta. We don't have to do anything else for people to like us. We are who we are, and we are a great people, and our time has come. Así soy yo. And that's so important to young people. I work a lot with the young generation. They want to be themselves. And Bad Bunny says, I want people to remember me as someone genuine, someone with a big heart, for being myself. That's what leaving your mark is about, doing something that represents who you really are. And that's very different than what's happened to Latinos in the past, where we had to adapt, we had to assimilate, we had to change. We even changed our names. And Bad Bunny's saying, no lo haga. You don't have to do anything else. You've made it. So shake the hand of the person next to you and say, we made it. We made it. We made it, baby. We made it. We made it. We made it. Next slide. So, change is coming. One of the reasons Latinos are going to be so powerful in this century is because we are part of the social transformations of this world. The multicultural nation is coming. We are multicultural. Generational change is coming. We're the youngest people in America. Global community is coming. We belong to 26 nations. So, here we go. Hold on. So, a generational change is coming. 10,000 baby boomers retire every day, right? Millennials and Zs are the largest generation in history. 51% of US Latinos are millennials or younger. The wave is coming. In 2030, millennials or younger will make up half of eligible voters. People ask me, am I worried about the future? I go, oh no, the millennials and Zs are coming. They almost doubled their voting participation in 2018. Out of the 12 Latinos elected to Congress in 2022, 58% are millennials or younger. And we elected the first Gen Z, Maxwell Frost out of Florida. Change is coming. I don't know why you're not getting this. Maybe I should do this. So, our nation is defined by our youth, right? The median age is 10 years younger. 1/3 of Latinos are 18 or younger. Latinos are 27% of millennials and 35% of Gen Z. 900,000 Latinos turn 18 every year. And college enrollment for Latinos has doubled in the last decade. So I want you to say this with me. I'm youthful, I'm energetic, I'm good looking, I'm Latina. I'm youthful, I'm energetic, I'm good looking, I'm Latina. I'm youthful, I'm energetic, I'm Latina. Next slide. So, will the boomers please stand up? I just did a talk with 200 people and there was only 2 of us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Will Generation X please stand up? Oh! Will the millennials please stand up? Yay! Change is coming. Gen Z. I love you, I love you, I love you. Next slide. Next slide. So, we are the multicultural people. We completely changed the census. Now they have 30 subgroups because, you know, we're intersectional. We like to put down everything we are. But here's who we are. 34% of us already say we're mixed. We're multicultural. 25% of us connect to our indigenous roots. My grandmother was Indian. 24% of us are Afro-Latino. 95% of the slave trade came to Central and South America. Black people are our relatives. And 42% of us claim our European blood, mainly our Spanish blood. But my father was French Nicaraguan. We have German, we have French, we have Spanish, we have Polish, we have Irish. You know, we are a mixed people. And the multicultural age is coming, and we will lead that change. The other thing about being international is that 33% of our growth in the last decade was through immigration. I'm an immigrant. How many of us here are immigrants? Please stand. Stand. Immigrants. How many of your parents were immigrants? Your parents. How many of your grandparents were immigrants? This is the Latino immigrant. We, because we're immigrants, we have the can-do spirit, we have vision, we have innovation. We don't give up. We take risks. Immigrants have made America great.
That's right.
And when the immigrants come, they revitalize our core. So we're becoming stronger as Latinos. We're not assimilating now. They come in, they dance better than us. They talk Spanish better than us. They don't have a chip on their shoulder from, having been by the dominant culture. And so they're revitalizing our core. And in addition to that, today, 22% of them, that says I have to leave you. Adios, mi gente. 22% of immigrants have a college degree. I want you to hear this. Latinos now have an intellectual class. It took us a long time to get here, but we have educated ourselves. We have worked for centuries to be where we are. No one has given us what we have today. We have earned it. So let's see what the next slide is, and then we're going to go to the last one. That's okay. We're the bridge to the Americas. You know that. And the bridge to the world, because we come from 26 countries. Next one. Okay. This is our secret weapon. This is, women have had the vote 100 years. Yes. 100 years. And that's the exhibit they had at the Colorado Museum. So look at what's happening with Latinas. Please put on the next slide and then the one after that. Well, we know that. We have brain power. Those are my 2 books, by the way, Brain Power. Next. Those are my daughters. Next. Go to the last slide. I'll have to come back. Okay, so this is J-Lo. She takes the opportunity when she's asked to do the Super Bowl to talk to us about who we are. So what did she say? She said, let's get loud. Come on, what'd she tell us? Let's get loud. Latina and proud. She said, let's get loud. Latina and proud. I want to hear you. Let's get loud. Latina and proud. Let's get loud. Latina and proud. We have to stand up for who we are today. We have to learn from our African Americans, brothers and sisters. We have to tell our story. We have to let the whole country know how we've gotten here and what we had to do to get here. Because if we don't start standing up for ourselves, if we don't start telling our story and stepping up to leadership, we will miss this moment in history. It is our time. The future is Latino. 6 Latinas were elected to the Denver City Council this last term. And one of them will be the first Latina mayor in the history of Denver. ¡Que viva el poder de la mujer! ¡Que viva! So you'll have to come back for the sequel. All right. Oh, I have to tell you this. I want my life to be an example, not an exception. You all can do all of this. And that's what I'm here to tell you. Okay, I have 3 beautiful young Latinas that are going to come up and share their stories with us. So we have Lali from CD Auraria. She describes herself, let's come on up here, as creative, compassionate, and a good friend. She's interested in women's studies and ethnic studies. We have Deniss. Raise your hand, Deniss. There she is. She's at Colorado State University, Fort Collins. She's a 4th-year psych major. She describes herself as helpful, compassionate, and adventurous. We have Sthephannie. She's at the Thomas Career Education Center, an early college student. She is determined, hardworking, and considerate. So let's welcome our young Latinas. We're going to have a conversation. Okay. Buenos días, mujeres poderosas. Can you tell us a little bit about how you identify and a little bit about yourselves? Who would like to start?
Yeah, I can start.
Can you hear her? Do I get a mic for them?
Oh, there we go.
Oh, you have it? You got it? Is it on?
Yeah, like you can hear it. Can you hear me?
Let me see. Let me see if it's on. Yeah, it's on. Can you turn on the mics for the panelists? Can you hear her?
No, I don't think mine's. Oh, it like taps. I feel like it works, but I don't think they're working.
We're resourceful. Okay, dude.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Deniss. My pronouns are she, her, ella. Like Juana said, I'm from Fort Collins, but originally from Mexico. And a little bit about myself is my family history is I come from an immigrant background. My parents are from Mexico. I was born in Mexico as well. And we immigrated here when I was a young child. So this country is all I've ever known. Oh, thank you.
So you're a DACA student.
Okay, there we go. Yes, yep, I am. And so with my parents being immigrant, I've endured the struggles of being undocumented and growing up in a country where you feel like it's your country, but the political standpoint doesn't necessarily support with that. So seeing my parents struggle and seeing how hard they worked and how much they sacrificed for my brother and I really inspired me to continue my work in immigration support and just journey and immigration justice. So with that, I was president of Dreamers United at CSU, an organization for undocumented students. Thank you. And my work has just centered on helping immigrant youth and as well as asylee and refugees. So that's a little bit about myself.
So my name is Lali. I go by Lali, and I am going into my second year at CCD. Right now, I don't really know where that's leading me to, but a little bit about my family. My grandparents were the ones that really had to sacrifice a lot for us. They came into the U.S. My my mom's side is from Jalisco, and from my dad's side, they are from Mexico City. So my dad immigrated when he was around 12, and my mom was born here in the U.S. And I think that kind of challenges a lot of what people think is a traditional, or like the stereotypical or sorry, I'm like blanking what you think an immigrant household is. So I didn't have to face a lot of the struggles that my peers probably face, but I realized that that is I'm blanking. But that is a privilege for me. At school, growing up, our family was very, oh my God, I have like my notes and I'm not looking at them. Our family values were really in culture and community, so that pushed me to be who I am. I grew up with a lot of mechistas, like my tia Sonia, so I feel yes. I feel very connected to my culture. I identify as Chicana because I feel like my community here, does need a lot of support, but I also recognize that there's struggles in Mexico as well. So yeah.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. My name is Sthephannie, Sthephannie Ojendis. I'm a rising junior at CEC Early College. A little bit about my family. I was born and raised in Colorado. Both my parents and my grandparents are from Mexico. My grandparents are the ones that had to do and go through the struggle of coming to this country, bringing their children, and for the opportunity of a better life, the American dream. So a lot of what inspires me is that hard work and that sacrifice that they had to go through in order to be able to give me the education and the power that I have today. I'm like blanking right now. Like it just blanks.
Yeah, well, Sthephannie, when you look at the challenges that young Latinos and Latinas are facing today, what makes you optimistic about our future?
The Latina leaders that are showing that younger generation that we have a voice and that we have the power and the availability to be something, to become something, and just step out of that stereotype of, well, you're Latina and you're a female, so you can't really, your place is in the home. So there's a lot of like stereotypes with gender and where you're from. And I feel like a lot of people like yourself that are Latina leaders that come and do all these speeches and that write books and that work in these higher education.
So they inspire you,
Yeah.
and they show you that you can do it too.
Yeah.
That's great. How about you, Lali? What would you say gives you hope for the future?
I think when you look at your communities, you don't realize how many young people are doing the work. It's not shown. Yeah. So, I think going kind of off of what she said is there is this stereotype of Latina, Mexicana women that they're either too feisty or when they talk back or use their voices, that they're toxic. And I think reclaiming that and like saying my voice is powerful and I can use that as a weapon against your like misogyny or any microaggressions that come against. So it gives me hope because I know a lot more younger people are using that to their advantage. Yeah.
So, yeah, I actually believe the young generation is an activist generation because of all the challenges you do face. And so that's great to hear that you're seeing that.
Yeah.
What keeps me positive of this generation, specifically Latino leaders, is how inclusive we're becoming as activists and really just incorporating and adding different identities to our community. I think that's something that in past generations necessarily haven't been happening. Within the Latino community, there are a lot of voices that still aren't heard within our community. So I think what I'm really looking forward to for this generation is the incorporation of adding more indigeneity, more women of all kinds, and also just different countries, immigration, DACA, all those different things that I think activists are starting to really incorporate in our larger movement. And that's really nice to see. So we're not leaving anybody behind and really making sure that we're also fighting for them as well.
Yeah. Well, you can hold that. Yeah, well, I think like when you look at issues like climate change, or you look at gun violence, or you look at college debt, it does cut across all the communities. And so there's a certain intersectionality in your approaches, I think, that's going to be very powerful in the future. So if a young Latina came and asked you, because they would be looking up to you, a younger Latina, what would you tell them would be like 3 ways they could become successful? What made you all able to go to college and work in different social things? And so what would you advise them?
The first thing I think about is like our Latino community is based on community and helping one another and lifting each other up. I think definitely asking for help, and also for the first generation Latinos, relying on your parents' help and asking them for help too is a big thing. Maybe they might not know the steps to get to college, but just that social support and really making sure that whatever you end up doing, you'll feel supported and they'll be there along with the journey. That's something that really helped me because my mom, she got an elementary school education, but she was able to give me a lot of knowledge and really prepare me for college. Not necessarily the education side, but just really keeping me focused and really ingraining that education is important no matter what status you have. Knowledge is power, and wherever you go, you'll always carry it with you. So I think that's a really big thing. And the second thing is asking for help as well. I know for me, first generation and being either the eldest of your family or just being the first one in your family to do something, you feel like you have to do everything by yourself and not ask for help and figure it out. And so I think that's another thing. Yes, we're hardworking, but we also need help. And it's also really important to ask people all around us, community, friends, leaders, just to really give us that support and really prepare us for whatever we want to do after.
By the way, when you ask for help, do they say yes?
They do.
Yes.
They're always wanting to share their resources. So
Yeah.
I think once you get that resource, you're able to share it with your community and then your university, and the communication starts to spread, and you're able to open doors for other people like you. So I think that's a really big thing to know.
How would you build on that?
So for me, I think it would be like just taking those opportunities that are given to you. I think a lot of times in my school, students were embarrassed to take opportunities, whether that was like tutoring or scholarships. And if they aren't presented to you, to go look for them, because there's always some there, and we're in a community that wants to help each other to get better. So I think that's one of them. And then another one would be to always unapologetically be yourself. So don't let other people make you feel like you have to confine to their rules, because that's what's going to make you stand out. And then everything she said was also
That's why
really
she
good.
has on those beautiful red boots.
Oh my God.
Building on to what they both said about asking for help and being unapologetically yourself, work hard. Don't give up, because there will be times where you feel like you're going to give up, but those are the times where you have to be like, no, I'm not giving up. I'm going to be myself. And follow your dreams and goals. If you do not work hard and put in that work to accomplish your dreams and goals, they'll just stay dreams. So you have to take action, even if it's a tiny little one, into accomplishing that goal and dream.
We get here because of our parents. And so I asked you all to think, what's the best piece of advice your parents gave you that made you successful?
A really big advice that my mom gave me, her being a single mom, is really ingraining education. I think that's something that I always had as a child, and I've always loved school. I've always loved learning, and a lot of that comes from her. As I started going to high school and then pursuing higher education, being undocumented, I had that thought of like, well, I can't go to college or it's going to be much harder for me. And even with those struggles, my mom always said, let's say something happens, you're always going to carry that knowledge where you go, and that degree you're going to get, it's going to be applicable everywhere. So, and I think that's something that really pushed me to, no matter what comes my way and what obstacles happen to me personally or in this country, to really hold on to that knowledge and just passing it on to others and really making sure that I'm able to get opportunities through that.
Well, it sounds like she told you to be brave.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I can't read that. Pardon? Only Deniss needs the mic. Oh, nice. All right, how about you, Lali?
Kind of like with the advice that I said before, my parents were always supportive in the decisions I wanted to make as a young child. So it was to always be myself, and there's going to be a lot of people who don't want you to do that and are going to stand in your way. And you have to realize that there's challenges within that, and it's not going to be easy, but if you overcome it, you will be a better person that way. And also to be proud of where we came from, to never forget where I came from. I think that's something that I always think about. Like everything I do it because of my parents, and I do it to make them proud, because I know there's a lot of sacrifices within my past family, and other people don't have the same opportunities I have, so to take advantage of that.
So if someone asked you, what are you proudest about with your family, what would you say to that?
I would just say my whole family. I think we grew up in a place where we always felt loved, and that goes out to extended family, so all our hood relatives. I have lots of love for them and everybody we've interacted with, so
Beautiful.
I think it's just the love we have.
All right, Sthephannie, what did your parents tell you that made you the successful and powerful young woman you are?
Well, they told me to A, follow my dreams and goals, and B, put in the work.
And put in the work.
That they said, put in the work, and if there's ever a time where you feel like you're not going to be able to do it, come and ask for that help, whether it be me or your counselors or your teachers, whoever you need help from. Know what your goals and your dreams are, put in the work, and then ask for help.
Beautiful. And what is your dream? Because I was going to ask you all, if you could like have a magic wand and become whoever you wanted to become, what would be your dream?
There are many.
Well, you don't have to know yet. You're still exploring,
yes.
but give us a couple.
I ideally be an engineer of some sort. Helping out and giving back to the community.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Because I feel like when you give, or when you're given, it's only right to give back. Because you're helping out the past you. So whether you know it or not, you could be helping someone that is currently in the situation you once were.
Beautiful. Go ahead.
And I also wanted to add on that another advice my mom gave me was just really being grateful with what I have. And I think that's something that maybe a lot of us take for granted. And like for me with my status, I always feel like, well, I'm missing all of these things, but you forget to think about the stuff you have. And that's something that as I've gotten older, I've become more appreciative of. And even just my journey to the US, like I am fully like acknowledge that I had the privilege to come with my parents. I didn't come alone. I didn't have that traumatic journey. And I think that's something that I really take for granted. And I was able to learn English and grow up in here and, have those opportunities. So I think that's another thing is no matter where you are in life, always think about what the things you do have, because you can hold on to those things and give back to people that don't have what you have. So I think that's
beautiful. So what would be your dream?
So I'm currently going into my 4th year at Colorado State University, and I'm thank you. And I'm majoring in psychology, clinical psychology, with a minor in ethnic studies. So my goal is to pursue higher education, get a PhD, and open up my practice in mental health facilities, specifically to support immigrant, refugee, and asylee community. So children, that's my dream.
And I can quickly say, like I said, right now I don't know which path I'm going to go on just because I have lots of options and I feel like I don't have to rush to make one. But whatever I do, I know I want to, what Sthephannie said, is always give back. I think that says a lot about who you are as a person, to never turn your back on those people because you don't know their situations. But whatever I do, I know I'm going to be happy. So as long as I am enjoying my life, then I'm okay with whatever path I get put on.
Yeah. Okay, so other than your parents, who is a leader or a person in your life that you really admire that helped you get to where you are? So we can honor them.
So I feel like a lot of times we look into our history books or online as people that we find inspiring as leaders. And for me, I didn't have to open that history book. I was able to find it in my communities, from family, friends of family, teachers. All of these people pushed me to be who I am. So I look up to them a lot because they made me who I am. So without them, I wouldn't be here, I think.
Well, that's beautiful to hear. So you feel like the community and your parents and your relatives nurtured you to be who you are. Well, I can see the self-confidence and also the sense of self that you have that they gave you. So that's beautiful. Sthephannie?
Women and programs that help you and your, like, accomplish your dreams and your journey in short words.
Can you give me one specific just so we can honor them?
The Girls Inc. organization.
Girls
I
Inc.
feel like
Let's hear it for Girls Inc.
they've given a lot to me, and they've taught me a lot. So yeah, that's one.
So mujeres, we can see that our future is in good hands. Yes,
And
I love this. She says, can I say one more thing?
I was gonna say, for me, definitely my mom. She's watching virtually, so hello, hola, ¿dónde esté? She has inspired me so much, being a, like I said, single parent, and I've gotten to the age where I am the age that they had me, and it's just crazy to see like what they did at my age and just like the sacrifices they did. And I can't imagine like coming to this country with 2 small children at my age. It's just really crazy. So it really makes me appreciate her a lot more and really take in those skills and those the knowledge that she gave me. So yeah, thank you.
Yay. Well, let's stand up and give a hand to these young women.